Half in the bag. Fuck movies.
Hello and welcome to Half in the Bag. I'm Jake.
Mike.
Oh my God, and we're doing something a little different today.
Yeah, that's because we have no interest in watching any of the movies that are out now. You know, movies like
Miss Paraguay's House of Pedos.
Deepwater Horizon, the story of an oil rig that blows up. Spoilers, it blows up.
That's it? Masterminds. The movie that looked like it was going to be so good, they delayed its release for at least a year. From the director of Napoleon Dynamite.
Oh, he hasn't made a hit film since Napoleon Dynamite. When I heard Masterminds was coming out, I thought it was a re-release of the film with Patrick Stewart.
The Magnificent Seven, which is a remake of The Ridiculous Six. Not to be confused with The Hateful Eight. Oh, and it might be a remake of some other movie too.
Jesus Christ. And lastly, the most anticipated film of the last century, Bridget Jones's Baby, which should be called Bridget Jones's Too Old to Have a Baby. When they said nursing home, the producers of the film thought nursing a baby, but it was literally a nursing home. There's a joke in there somewhere. It just wasn't presented properly. I need a little time to work on that one.
Okay.
There's a joke in there somewhere, Jay.
All right.
You know.
You have approximately 26 minutes, and then the episode will be over.
Okay.
So.
We're going to hold out to the end of the episode. I'm going to work in the nursing home joke with Renee Zellweger, childbearing, and being elderly.
Yes.
I got to put all these pieces together. Okay, so. And go timer. Well, Jay, why are we really here today, if not to talk about trashy films that are out?
Oh, we're going to talk about the trashy films that already came out. We're going to talk about the box office. So the box office, Hollywood is going down. Hollywood is in ruins, according to all these articles and everyone talking about summer movies. We're calling this the death of the summer blockbuster. But
yet, we've made tons of money.
Well, that's what we have to discuss. For everyone talks about every movie's a big flop, but that's not entirely the case, we've discovered.
Let's look at the numbers.
Yes, because that's what's important here, is not just articles and Rotten Tomatoes scores, it's the hard facts.
Well, Jay, I have facts here on my clipboard.
You have like a printed out piece of paper on a clipboard?
Yep.
Like an elderly person?
I personally killed this tree.
Okay.
Although the creation of my smartphone personally killed a couple Chinese kids in a factory. So which is worse?
Well,
tell me.
I would say that's worth it.
Well, yeah, that's debatable.
You know how many Chinese people there are? Who's going to notice a couple missing?
Oh my God. Anyways, so I took the summer of this year, 2016, and I took 25 films, not randomly sampled, 25 of the top films from each month, from May to the end of August.
We're talking exclusively about summer blockbusters here.
Summer blockbusters. Batman v Superman, Ghostbusters, X-Men, Star Trek, Jason Bourne, Ben-Hur, etc. Well, the general rule of thumb is to find out how much a movie's break-even point is, you take their production budget and you multiply it by 2 to account for advertising and marketing. So, of course, there are exceptions to the rule. That's not the case for every movie.
Right, but the big ones, it's a good rough gauge.
Yeah, like Kubo and the Two Strings, for example, which had a production budget of $60 million. I'm going to guess probably didn't have an advertising budget of $60 million because I never fucking heard of it.
I heard about it when it was out. Someone said, have you seen Kubo and the Two Strings? And I said, is that a new hipster band? But then you have movies like Blair Witch, where the budget was $5 million, and you know they spent way more than the actual budget on the movie on the advertising.
Yes.
So there's always differences. But when a movie costs 150, 200 million to make, it's a good rough estimate.
Yeah, it's an average, basically. And everything averages itself out. Like Kubo and the Two Strings, I have a budget of $60 million. The total gross, and when I have total gross, it's worldwide, not just domestic, is $59 million. So really, like, if you were to apply this rule to that, we're looking at $120 million and a loss of $61 million. Batman v Superman, one of the most hated films of all time, according to an article I read.
According to half the internet.
Yes.
The other half of the internet thinks it's a brilliant masterpiece.
Budget, $250. Times that by 2, 500 million. Worldwide gross, only $873 million, which means a total profit of $373 million.
And you know those WB executives think that that's a disappointment, because this was supposed to be the biggest movie ever. How do you fuck up Batman and Superman in a movie together?
Right. And so you sit there and you say, oh, well, the movie made almost $400 million. That's a lot. But they're all like panicking. It's flopping. It's terrible. We're fucked. Because they have taken, I'm assuming they expected $1 billion in profit. They take that and they say, oh, what are we going to do with this $1 billion that we're going to make? Let's put it here. Let's put it here. Let's put, and then they go, oh my God.
Oh, we only have 400 million.
Well, that's the cost of like an average home in Hollywood.
I'm sure somebody bought a really nice couch off of Batman v Superman.
Yes.
Somebody got a really nice couch.
Maybe just a nice, small, 1,000 square foot home in the Hollywood Hills.
Oh, do they have 1,000 square foot homes in the Hollywood
There's
Hills?
probably one that's up there.
Okay.
And it's like the asking price, $373 million.
It's way at the top where the air is really thin and no
Yes.
one actually wants to live, but hey, it's in the Hollywood Hills.
No, the air is cleaner up there. The smog.
Is it above the smog?
It's above the smog. That's
Okay.
Yeah. So the guy who produced the Batman v Superman, or Zack Snyder bought it.
Maybe that's why his movies are the way they are, because his brain is just clouded by LA smog.
Possibly.
That's why every movie that he makes looks gray.
Do you bleed? Well, you will.
Well, okay, so we have a situation like that, which is a unique situation because this is their flagship film that they're going to use the profits from to fund 63 other films.
Their whole cinematic universe.
Their whole cinematic universe. So that's sort of a different thing. But then you got like random movies throughout the whole summer. And out of the 25 films, I have 6 that had a loss.
Which one had the biggest loss?
Well, the biggest loss clearly was Ben-Hur, with a production budget of $100 million, a total worldwide gross of only 87.
Oh my God.
$87 million.
How embarrassing.
Yes. The second biggest disaster, well, one of the biggest disasters in cinema history was the Ghostbusters remake.
But Mike, I read an article that said that it's actually doing okay. It was the highest grossing opening for a Melissa McCarthy comedy.
Oh my God, it's such a hit.
What are the numbers for Ghostbusters?
Well, I did read an article that it was the highest grossing film of all time about 4 female Ghostbusters. The budget of this is quite high at $144 million.
For a Ghostbusters comedy.
Multiply that by 2, and then you have the total worldwide gross of only $228 million.
Worldwide?
Worldwide, which is a loss of about $60 million.
Yeah, I remember reading an interview with Paul Feig where he was saying that the movie needed to make at least $500 million to break even. I think they spent a shitload on marketing for that one.
Right, and this is a good example of where marketing may exceed, times 2 the production budget.
Right.
In some cases, it may be less. In some cases, it may be more.
Sure, and I know this isn't the case with all the movies on this list, but with that movie specifically, I know that Sony was really banking on that being like their one mega blockbuster for the year. They started a new division that was going to be an entire a company devoted to just making Ghostbusters universe movies. It was called Ghost Corp. Mm-hmm. And now it's a Ghost Corpse.
Now it's a ghost town in all those buildings that they built.
All those production offices are just empty. Yeah. Paul Feig sleeping under a desk.
Well, at least he didn't put a shotgun in his mouth. And then, of course, what would you guess are the other 2? We talked about Kubo and the Two Strings, which may or may not have lost money. We're not sure. But we have 2 other films.
2 other films that were in the negative.
Yes. I'll give you a hint.
Okay.
One was directed by Steven Spielberg.
Oh, that's why I don't remember it, because everybody's forgotten about the BFG.
The Big Fucking Giant, as it's known.
Yes.
The BFG, budget of $140 million.
Oh my God.
And a worldwide gross of 174. And a projected loss of $106 million. Those are the movies that essentially lost money.
Right.
But everything else made money.
Well, what about what people are saying is like the biggest flop ever was Warcraft, which isn't true.
Yes, Warcraft is considered a big flop. And I was shocked at the budget. The budget was 160 million. But in China alone, it made $250-ish million. Worldwide gross, $433 million. But 60 million domestically. No one in the US cared.
Right.
China loved it. And so they profited 113 million.
Yeah, and that's why something like Ghostbusters didn't do well, is because it didn't even open in China because they're scared of ghosts.
That's right, yes. That hurts. It's like Star Wars didn't do well there, and they really pushed it. And they're like, look at it, it's got spaceships and robots.
与我一起点亮光剑，逐鹿星球，唤醒原力。
And then something like Warcraft does like gangbusters there.
Yeah.
I don't think we quite have a handle on what the Chinese like. And there was like some other movie that was like super big there. And it was like some weird ass movie, and I'm like, what is that? And it's like, oh, that's the biggest movie in China. It's the biggest movie ever. And I'm like, what?
扮鱼的美人鱼，明白吗？
So yeah, like, okay, things you consider flops. X-Men Apocalypse flopped. Everyone says flopped. $178 million budget.
Oh my God.
And a $543 million worldwide take. Profited $187 million. And Star Trek Beyond, same thing, very small profit, $34 million. $185 million budget.
Oh my God.
One of the biggest budgets on the whole list.
Wow, that's actually kind of shocking.
Except for Captain America, the biggest, and Batman. So
Not in the negative, but...
The studios want a Jurassic World.
Yes.
I'm flipped back to my 2015 list, which I also did calculations for. Jurassic World's budget, $150 million. Worldwide take, $1.6 billion.
Holy shit.
Yes. Total gain, $1.3 billion.
But that's what they're hoping for. That they want that one movie, like that's, I'm sure, what Warner Brothers wanted with Batman v Superman. That one movie that's just going to hit,
Yes.
where it doesn't even matter how many of their other movies, don't do that well.
Right.
It used to be, you'd make a number of modestly budgeted movies. I mean, even something like, I don't know, Back to the Future. Like, that's not, even if you count for inflation, I don't think that's anywhere near something like the budget of a Jurassic World or a Batman v Superman. But there's more movies that make a shitload of money back then. And now it's like they're putting all their eggs in, a couple tiny baskets. Whereas
Yeah.
we have like 3 big releases this year, and they all need to make $1 billion for us to be profitable.
Part of the reason, too, is oversaturation. Because one thing I looked at, which I didn't bother to do for 2015, because after I did 2016, I found a pretty even trend. And that's second weekend box office drop-off, which is in almost every case above 50%.
Oh my God.
In some cases, it's close to 70%.
What had close to 70?
Batman v Superman. X-Men Apocalypse, 65%. Suicide Squad, 67%. But even films that are successful, Captain America Civil War, 59% drop-off.
Oh, wow.
And that made $1.1 billion worldwide. So really you have your opening weekend to make or break your film.
Yes.
Because regardless of how big of a hit it is or how much money it's made, it almost always gets cut in half or more. Warcraft, 70% drop second weekend. And Rotten Tomato scores all over the map. The movies have bigger budgets and there's more of them. So only 1 out of 10 or 1 out of 20 can really be that big hit. And it's almost like at least everybody's working. There's all these people making these movies, and it's almost like throwing shit at the wall to see what sticks.
Yeah.
And if one of them sticks, then you cover the other 9. But it's so like machine-like and disposable.
That's what I was going to say. It feels so calculated, where it's not even about the quality of the movie anymore. It's about the making sure that it plugs in all these elements that'll appeal to all these people. And we've talked in the past about movies that do additional photography to account for the Chinese market, where we re-edit our movies to make sure that they appeal to a Chinese market.
The one thing that continues, and this sickens me to the core, is the Transformers films. They consistently make over $1 billion in profit each film.
Both in the U.S., right? Like, it's not like they're just huge in China. It's a combination. They do well here and they do well in China.
They do, you know, 200-300 million here.
Yeah.
But when you add in overseas, especially China, it's pulling in $1 billion each. And I was looking to 2017. There's Transformers 5 coming out.
Oh my God.
And then they've already have 6 and 7 in the works because they're up to 5 and there has not been any diminishing returns, I don't think. I think it's either been consistent or getting better.
Yeah.
I
think it's because there's no sort of cultural barrier that the movie has to get past. Like, those feel like foreign films in the U.S. I watch them and I'm like, I don't know what's happening. I feel like I'm watching, you know, a Bollywood movie.
Let's talk about 2017. So I went through and I guessed on the budget, the domestic take, the international take, and what the Rotten Tomatoes score is going to be.
Okay, so this is your predictions for...
These are my predictions.
So come back to this video in exactly 1 year's time.
Yep, the end of September, and we'll see.
And tell us how Mike did.
The Mummy, $120 million budget.
That's your guess?
That's my guess.
Okay.
None of these budgets
None
are
of these
listed.
are confirmed.
Yes. $28 million domestic take. It's going to flop hard because it's called The Mummy. Even with Tom Cruise.
Sure.
So it's gonna have an international take of $100 million.
Oh, okay.
So it's going to make some money. It's going to play very well in Egypt because Egyptians like Tom Cruise.
Oh, of course, yeah.
The Beauty and the Beast film, which I was thinking might have been a CGI film, and I have a budget of $75 million, but since it's not, it's going to go up a little.
Okay.
So I'm going to say $120 million budget for Beauty and the Beast.
That sounds reasonable.
A domestic take of $110 million, and a worldwide take of $300 million. This is a pretty stable bet.
Absolutely. They've been pretty consistent with those live-action Disney movies lately.
Yeah. A 74% Rotten Tomatoes score. My Mummy score is at 36%, by the way. The Power Rangers film, while it will profit $150 million, it's going to suck. It's going to suck hard. It's going to get a 26% on Rotten Tomatoes. And its budget's going to be $120 million, again. And it's only going to bring in $50 million domestically. And it's going to have a 70% drop-off the first weekend. International take of $200 million. It's going to do well in the Asian markets.
They like them big robots.
Yes, but it's going to get a terrible review of 26% on Rotten Tomatoes. Jumanji. Now, Jumanji is going to suck.
Sure.
I predict a 31% score on Rotten Tomatoes, but remember, it is a Sony film.
Oh, it is? This changes everything.
Yes, I made very clear to note that. However, even though this is dipping into Adam Sandler territory.
Yeah.
It's a Sony film, but it has The Rock and it has Kevin Hart in it.
Oh, he's pretty big right now.
The Central Intelligence film was a hit,
yes.
A comedy film that was a hit. So The Rock and Kevin Hart are a new comedy duo because The Rock is so tall and Kevin Hart is so short.
Right.
They're the new Abbott and Costello. If you don't know who that is, just dust off like an old book that your grandfather has in his library. And it's going to have a $150 million budget. It's going to make $250 million in the U.S. And internationally, probably less than 100.
Okay.
So it's going to profit. It's going to profit a lot.
It's going to do better in the U.S. than it will overseas, you're thinking.
Yes. Transformers 5, $200 million budget, $230 million U.S. and 900 million internationally,
Okay.
putting the profit near $1 billion. I think it's going to start to wane. I think this will be the first one that dips below the $1 billion mark.
Ooh.
In terms of profit.
Right.
The Justice League. I foresee better things for the Justice League than I do for Batman v Superman.
Well, I think they're trying to course correct at this point.
Yes.
They have that early Comic-Con teaser for it. And they're like, look, there's jokes in this.
They're going to lighten it up.
Yeah.
Budget 250. Safe to say, probably 250.
What was Batman v Superman?
250.
Okay.
And all the Avengers movies were 250.
Yeah.
Domestic, $350 million.
That's your guess?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Less worldwide, $600 million. I think it's going to do much better than Batman vs Superman. So yeah, I think they're gonna make some course corrections, like you said.
You know what that means? That means we may finally get that Aquaman movie we've all been dreaming of.
Well, the Wonder Woman movie is coming out before this, and a lot of it banks on that too.
I suppose.
Whether or not that flops hard, and I really don't know. I think it might. So if that tanks, then it's like, okay, yeah.
But I think people thought, because of the reception to Batman v Superman, that Suicide Squad, as a reaction to that, was going to do really poorly. And that did really well, so you never know.
This will be the movie that, when people look at history and they'll say, this is the point where superhero fatigue began.
I feel like we've been saying that for the last 3 years, though. It's going to happen. We're going to hit that superhero fatigue, and it just never happens.
And finally, the wild card, Spider-Man: Homecoming. This is problematic.
Okay.
And let me say this: it's problematic. One, Spider-Man fatigue. The last two films sucked. They sucked hard.
I think the strength of love for Marvel is higher than the Spider-Man fatigue.
However, we have a potential Josh Trank / David Ayer situation.
We do.
Remember before when I asked you if you knew who John Watts is?
I don't know who that is.
He's the man who's directing Spider-Man: Homecoming.
Oh, he directed the movie Clown.
Yes.
It's about a killer clown.
And he also directed the Kevin Bacon film Cop Car.
Yes, which I've heard is good. I haven't seen it.
Which I heard is good. It's about
Kids
steal a cop car. I don't know what these have to do with Spider-Man, a killer clown, and a stolen cop car. But
Well, Cop Car was like an indie hit, so that's what they do now, is they take the guy who made the one small movie that was well received, got good reviews, and they immediately thrust him into a $200 million franchise. And it always goes well.
And it always goes well. Exactly, aka the Josh Trank effect.
Right. But then you do have someone like a James Gunn, you know, who did Super for next to nothing, and then went on to do Guardians of the Galaxy, and that works.
And your Joss Whedon too. But
Colin Trevorrow, even though I didn't like that Jurassic World, it was a huge hit.
yeah,
So.
I mean, I guess we could look at, are they going to push him around and say, yeah, don't do that, don't do that, or are they going to let him make the movie? I don't know.
I think it depends on how much he wants that check. Because you have someone like Edgar Wright, who's like, they were trying to bully him around with Ant-Man, and he's like, I'm out, I don't need this.
Yeah.
I think most of the other Marvel filmmakers kind of understand that they're going to have to compromise with some things.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you got to shove in, you know, Thor into this one scene. And they're like, okay, do I get that check?
So yeah, that's that. I'm hesitant to say my predictions on Spider-Man: Homecoming.
Well, you got to do it.
All right.
We've come this far.
I think it, despite the questions or the uncertainties, I think it will do well. I have a budget of, I'm going to say 200 million. The Avengers movies are 250. I think there'll be a lot of effects and action, but you don't have to pay Robert Downey Jr.
Yes.
He might have a cameo, I don't know. But domestic take, 300 million. International take, 600 million.
Okay.
So we're talking about a $900 million movie take, not profit. Then you minus about 500 for the film's budget and the marketing costs.
Yeah.
A solid hit at $400 million profit. It's not going to be a $1 billion Avengers style movie.
What's the Rotten Tomatoes score?
Oh, Rotten Tomatoes score. I have a 72%.
Okay.
I have a feeling it's going to be better than the last ones. So those are my numbers. Numbers are all listed here in one giant screen image format for looking at later. And we'll revisit us in a year.
Mark October 2017 on your calendar so you remember to come back to this video.
October 1st, 2017. We'll make a video if both of us are still alive. Well, Jay, did you enjoy not talking about a specific movie for once?
Well, it's interesting to look at all these numbers because everyone always talks, I mean, we do it too. We're like, this movie's a huge flop, this movie's a huge flop. And we use Rotten Tomatoes. Some people use it as like a hard fact. This movie sucks because the Rotten Tomatoes score is, you know, whatever, 20%, which is never the case. It's an aggregator. You shouldn't judge whether you want to see a movie or not based on that necessarily, but a lot of people do. That's where we are. That's where we are now.
Yeah. And some movies that have low Rotten Tomato scores make tons of money, and vice versa.
Yeah.
For some reason,
Ghostbusters
Yeah.
was certified fresh, which they now put on the Blu-ray cases for movies that do well, that they want to make sure people understand are well received.
Yeah. Mysteriously, Ghostbusters got a very, very high Rotten Tomatoes score.
It's very odd.
I don't know why.
And yet it's still one of the biggest flops of the year.
Yeah, it lost a ton of money.
We may never know how that happened.
Jay, you keep talking about this film called Ghostbusters. Are you
Yes.
talking about the newly released film called Answer the Call?
Oh yeah, they changed the title for the Blu-ray release, right?
Yeah. I think it's still
Did
Ghostbusters.
they want to trick
but
people into thinking that it's a sequel to the Ghostbusters that came out earlier this year?
I think they were trying to trick people into thinking it was a completely different movie. Because then they might make some money on the Blu-ray sale.
They should have just called it Captain America Civil War.
Well, we'll see what next summer brings. More big movies with big budgets, making okay money, and Hollywood executives getting fired or committing suicide when they don't reach the $1 billion mark like they promised their bosses. I swear this thing's gonna be a next Jurassic World. Oh, fuck.
The magic of Hollywood.
It's like you could sit out on a nice starry night in Hollywood in like a lawn chair and just listen for